Hello and welcome to our front-end web development course. In this class we're going to be talking about HTML forms and validations. I'm sure you've seen this kind of forms on different websites you visited, a login form, a register form and the likes. Forms are for data aggregation and transfer. So forms usually have input fields where you can pass in details or data, and then as a submit handler that helps you pass those data to a server. This is what I mean. This is your browser. Your browser has a keyboard and you have several input fields showing on your screen. You type it in and then your browser makes what we call an API call or makes a request, an HTTP or HTTPS request, hypertext protocol to the server. Your data goes and then a response comes back. Let's see this in action. Okay, so this is our HTML file, and every HTML form has a parent or element called the form tag. So I'm going to add the form tag here. And every form tag can have several other children. Every form tag can have several other children like input, text area, button, select, option, and label. We are going to be exploring all these options. But before then, let's just look at the attributes that the form elements could have. One of the most important attributes is the method attribute. Remember I showed a picture of the browser sending an HTTP request to the server. This method shows us which of the HTTP verbs the form would be using when submitting the data. We have several HTTP verbs, but we'll just consider two today. That's the get and the post. The post method is for uploading data. Let me call it that way. It's for updating data on your. It's for uploading data on your server. So every input field here would come together as a form body or form data and be sent using a post method. Another attribute of the form element is the action. This action specifies where to send the form data when a form is submitted. API to receive data.com. This is just a sample API. The next important element in the form is the label element. The label element is used to identify an input tag. So we could say this is first name, and we could come here and have an input. We've started adding elements, inputs, and say this input is so the input could have a name attribute, a type attribute, and several other attributes. For now, we're going to consider the name attribute and the type attribute. As we proceed in this particular class, we are going to explore more attributes that the input element could have. So let's say type, because it's a name, is certainly text. The ID is equal to fname. Whoosh. Yep. What are we missing out? I think that's fine for now. And the name is equal to fname. Now the label has an attribute called the for attribute, and the for attribute is to identify which input field it is representing. So this would be, as you can see, the ID of the input. fname. Let's have the next element. Let's call it last name. Let me just copy this. Let's call this L name. Let's call this L name. So in the previous classes, I told you that input labels are inline elements by default. And to convert a group of inline elements to fill the width of the screen, you could wrap them around the div elements. Do you remember that? I believe you should. Yep. So now we have our first name separate from our last name. Let's do the same for other tags that we're going to be using. So this label is for, you can guess, is for L name element, or the element with the ID L name. Oh, so let's have a few more input elements with different types. We have let's just play with the different types of inputs that we have. We have a type called color. We have another type called dates. You could have given it any ID. You could have said or date of birth or something. Oh yeah, we didn't wrap this around a div. Okay, so can we have one more? Yeah, let's just have a checkbox. First name, last name, favorite color, and then date of birth. Okay. First name, Damilare. Yeah, last name, Ademeso. Favorite color, you could choose any color, yeah. Then date of birth. Cool. Let's add one more element. That's our button element, and then we can say submit. So what happens is every button has different type attributes. When you use the submit attributes, what happens is every time a user clicks this submit, the browser is going to take all the input values in this, all the values in this input fields and forms or elements, and send it as a post method or as a post request to this action. Let's add more validation attributes to our input element, for example. So we've seen a text field. Let's add a number field. I think that's very important too. Number. So let's say phone number. Phone number. This is for the phone number ID. Always remember this is for the ID. Yep. So as it is now, when you click your submit button, whether the input fields have values in them or not, it's going to make that call to this action endpoint. But to mitigate against people sending unvalidated or invalid data, there is what we call validation in HTML5. For example, for our input elements, one of the things we could add is the required attribute. Now with this required attribute, when you click on submit, it will tell you to please fill out this field. Let's do same for every other input element. Now you need to fill in every field. So let's say Damilare again, and then submit. Next one will tell you you also need required, name. First name is required. Submit. I'm missing out something, please. The last name input field is, oh, beautiful. Can you see? I wrote input instead of input. Yep. So we now have it. Let's go again. First name is required. Please fill out this field. Damilare. Surname Ademeso. This is a number. This should have been age. Sorry. Age. We go again. Damilare Ademeso. 22. Favorite color. Let's choose this. Okay, date of birth. And then we can proceed to submit our form. Let's add more validations to this little form of ours. For text fields, that means for inputs that have the attribute type set to text, you can set a maximum length attribute. So you could have max length, and let's say it must not be more than let's say 5 letters. So let's say 5 characters. Now let's assume I filled this again. Damilare. You can see that I am not permitted to type in more than 5 characters. I could also do a minimum length of for this, let me do a minimum length. Min length and max length attributes are for text fields. Please note. Min length of 2. So we go again. The meal, and then 22. Please lengthen this text to 2 characters or more. You are currently using 1 character. Why? Because we set a validation that this input should only accept characters with a minimum length of 2. So let's add. Without this form would not submit. Let's go ahead and add validation for our text, our number type. We could also have a maximum length, but instead of max length, all we would have is max. And this would be, let's say, I hope I'm not too old, let's say 2. So if I try to write 323, and I submit, it tells me values must be less than or equal to 2. Same goes for the mean attribute. Yeah, basically these are the little these are the different attributes you could use for validation on the input fields. Here there is another one that is of note, and I would like to talk about it quickly. Yep, so talking about validation in HTML forms, we've spoken about the type attributes that can be used for validation. We've spoken about the max length, mean length, max and min. There is another very important and powerful tool. It is called the pattern attribute. It uses regex, that's regular expressions in JavaScript, and I can assure you that by the time you get to JavaScript and you start using regular expressions, it's one of the strongest tools you would have in your first aid box, if you permit me to say that. So the pattern attribute can be added to an input field, and you're saying this is the kind of input I want. For example, if your input field is not first name, let's assume it is the card number for an ATM card, a MasterCard ATM card or a Visa ATM card. You want it to be 13 digits, 16 digits. You could use regular expressions to validate the kind of input that would be there. So because we've not got into our JavaScript class, I'll just do simple regexes that you can find anywhere on the internet. So let's go with pattern is equal to A, for example. So if we have the A pattern here, what you are saying to this input element is that you can only accept an input or a character that is A. So if the character is B, for ease of explanation, I've removed the required attributes that we had before, and I only have the required attributes on this input field. So if we add the pattern here to this and I insert B in my input field, see what happens? Please match the requested format. But if I input A, then my form will submit with no error. Let's check a few other rejections that we have here. ABC matches A followed by B and followed by C. What do I mean? So I say I say ABC. If I have ACB, it will throw me an error. I have to match the requested format. If I try BCA, it will throw me an error. I have to match the requested format. But if I try ABC, it would not throw me any error. Okay. Can you see that? Please match the requested format. Okay. Another one is the question mark operator in regex. So I have something like this, and I say match A, optionally followed by single B, then followed by C. What I'm saying is I can have ABC or I can have AC. The question mark has already said that the B in front of the question mark is optional. So what do I mean? We could have AC, it's fine, but we cannot have ACD to throw an error. It's now fine. We can also have ABC, it would not throw us an error. Okay. Another one is AB asterisk C. The asterisk is saying that it's optionally followed by any number of B's. So I could have A D C. I'm saying I could have A C, which is fine. I could have ADC, which is still fine. I could have ADDDDDC. Oh, we already said the max length is 5. Is this getting interesting? So because of the max length attribute, we can't go beyond this, but this is still also fine. But if we have ADDD without a C to throw an error, we have to match the requested format. We have two more. The OR operator in regex, something like this. So we are saying we could have A in this input field or B, but we cannot have A and B. So it's either A or B. If you have any other thing, it will throw you an error. If you have AB, it will throw you an error. Same with this last one, still the same thing. It has to match exactly what is on the left of the pipe operator or what is on the right of the pipe operator. So we could have ABC and fine, but we cannot have ABC XYZ. Oh, because of the max length. Let me just change this to 6 to accommodate for our example ABC XYZ. Please match the requested format. But if we have XYZ, we have this. Perfect. One more thing I would like to talk about in our form, in our HTML forms, is the field set. The field set is just used for grouping a set of input elements. So the field set has been used to group our radio buttons, and our radio buttons have a legend that you normally see on several forms. Do you agree to these terms? Let's say you're trying to sign up for to a website, and there are a whole lot of fine prints that have been written, and you just see, do you agree to these terms? I'm sure most times we don't read them, and we just click yes. So now take note of the radio buttons or radio input types. Input type radio, the name is radio for yes, the name is still radio again for no. What this is saying is they are the same, and we only need one of them per time. That's why you see you cannot click yes and no on the radio input. It's either yes or no. So the value for this input would either be yes or no at any point. Another input element or another form element I quickly want to talk about before we round up is the select element. You could have several options in a drop down. The select element would come to your rescue. So this is a label for cars. Remember, the cars would be the ID of the elements, which makes sense, right? And then the select element would have option elements as its children or as children to it. So we have option with a value. Take note, the select is what has the name and the ID, the name rather. The option carries the value. For the type radio, the name and the value is on the element, but for select, the name is on the select element and the value is on the option element. So you could have several options of different cars, and we're saying this guy who is filling this form should choose one of these cars, and that means by the time he has selected, the value of this select element would be whatever has been selected from the option. It's either it is Saab or Mercedes or Audi or Volvo. Thank you for your time.